Hello, welcome back. In this session we are going to see triggers. Triggers and cursors are the most requested sessions from students in my previous course. So I'm going to cover those now. So let's see the triggers. So here I'm going to create two tables. One is ACT, which means actuals, and another table called hist, means history table. So in the first table I have two columns, order and quantity, and the second table also I have same columns. Along with that I have one more extra column called changed on, and the changed on data type is timestamp. So what I am trying to achieve here is, if you are from the BW background, you know how the DSO functions, right? For example, you loaded order number 1 with quantity 10, and then again in the second day you are loading the same order with quantity 15. So the DSO, what it does, it simply overwrites. So the overwrite happens indirectly. The previous quantity value it will negate, and the new quantity value will get added. So that means if the previous quantity is 10, and when you update the new record with 15 quantity, it will add one extra record in the DSO with minus 10 quantity. Okay, anyway, so let's see in the example, you will understand better. Now I'm going to create these two new tables here. Okay, now let's write a triggers. So first I'm going to write insert trigger. So to define a trigger, the statement is create trigger and the trigger name t underscore act underscore insert. So this t means a trigger and the table of actual, and the trigger type is insert. Okay, now once you define the trigger, how this trigger need to happen. So with the name, trigger won't understand whether it is a insert trigger or update trigger, right? You can name anything here. So that's why after insert on which table, ACT, referencing. So this is a standard code here, referencing new row as. So referencing new row as, this is a standard syntax. So what row you want, so that new row as my new row, I'll say my new row. So this variable, you are declaring a new variable with the referencing new row as. So that means whatever the new row you insert into the actual table, that is we are referencing that row here, and this is the variable name. And in triggers we call these variables as transient variable. So my new row is a transient variable here. Now start the begin and end block. You can write whatever the code here. So for me, in this case, I'm simply doing some insert statement. Insert into history table values. So the values we get from this transient variable. So the transient variable, if you want to refer, so like a regular variable, you just use the double quotes. Now this row contains the all columns, right? Order, it contains order, it contains quantity. So now the first value will be order and second value will be quantity. Since we have in the history table there is another column called changed on, so when this record is added into this table, we will track with that column. So that changed on is a timestamp, so I'll simply use one function now. You know, right? When we use now function, what happens? Okay, so when I use now function, it simply generates the current timestamp. Okay, so that's a trigger, insert trigger. Let's create and test it. Success. So the trigger is created. Now you can see the trigger here, TACT insert. The trigger is created. Now let's go and insert a record. Insert into ACT values I'll say order number 10 with quantity 100. Okay, let's insert this record. Success. Now I'm going to run select statements on actual and history. So now you see we have on the actual table we have order number 10 with quantity 100. The same value came here with the timestamp. Okay, now I can insert as many as records into the actual and those will go into the history table. That is good, right? Now let's see how this update statement going to work. Update trigger. Let me use the same code here. So create trigger t underscore actual underscore update. Okay, now after insert on actual, so we are again creating the trigger on the actual itself, because when we update the record in actual table, that will go into the history table. Referencing new row as my new row, and there is another transient variable we are going to declare as old row as my old row. Okay, so I'm creating two transient variables. One is the new row and one is the old row, my old row. So the trigger understands what is the existing value, what is the new value we are inserting. Okay, inserting or updating. So now since I have two transient variables, let me insert into history values. So the old one is good, let's keep that as it is. Let me take this, insert into history values. Instead of my new row here, I'm going to change it as old. Here also old. Now the quantity, I see now the function, as I said, now I'm going to update this order number 10 with the quantity as 200. So now when I update with the 200, my previous record already there in the history table, now it becomes 300, right? So if I want to overwrite, I simply use multiplied with -1. Okay, so that's old row, and new row statement will be same. Okay, let me create this trigger. Perfect. Let me refresh here. Okay, update trigger got. Now I'm going to okay, let me write the update statement here. Update ACT set quantity is equal to 200. Since I have one record where condition is not required, but okay, order is equal to 10. Now I am going to update this. Let's see what the magic happened inside these two tables. Now okay, my actual table is 200, but my history table not worked. Let's see what went wrong here. So the insert my old row, new row. Oh, okay, here I should not use the insert word here. I should use update on actual. Okay, let me drop this trigger. Let me recreate this trigger again. Okay, so update trigger created. Now since we have values here 200, but my old table is still having 100, so let me it's okay, now you will understand what is happening. So now I'm going to change the quantity to 500. See, now what it made, the previous value 200, right? So here I have 200 previously, that 200 become minus 200 here, and then it created a new record with 500. Since we ran that statement, so it's supposed to like minus 100 and then 200, but anyway, because of that mistake, now the functionality is working perfectly, right? Now let me insert a new order here, order number 20 with the 100 quantity. Now let's see order 20 100, and in the actual table also order 20 100. Now I'm going to update this order 20 with the quantity 50. Now if I run this again, now in my actual table my order value become 50, but in the history table, see, the original value was 100, now I got minus 100 and 50 plus 50. So when you sum this value, the quantity value sum up, both actual and history tables having same number, but the history table here, it's tracking all the history. Original 100 minus 100 then 50, so that means all the values are tracking. Now if I update this with the 500, then 11 something, I'm just randomly updating. Now if I see the history table, initially it's 100, then 50, then 500, then 1100, so something like that. So this functionality easily achievable by using triggers. So hope you understand. So that's all for this session. See you in the next session. Until then, happy learning. Bye.